We all know that Nvidia launched the RTX 4090 for $1,600 back last year, but nowadays this card is going for $2,000 brand new. The price is absolutely absurd, and you would think that this price would turn people off, that they wouldn't be buying it, but somehow Nvidia has convinced people to actually be getting this card. If you check out the Steam hardware survey, I would think that this number would be way less. Like, this means that 1 in 200 people own a 4090, a $1,600 graphics card or a $2,000 graphics card right now. And this whole idea seems like Nvidia has found a way to tap into the whaling culture, the people that want to spend a ton of money to get the absolute best thing they possibly can, to be above everybody else. I think this kind of proves it. I found this forum post, sorry about the flashbang, to the owners of RTX 4090s, or who did actually feel the financial sting, so not people that have unlimited money, these are relatively normal people, said, do you regret your purchase of the RTX 4090? There is tons of responses here where people just didn't regret it. This guy says, nah, I don't regret it. I sold a bunch of my old gaming stuff to cover it, which is fair. I'll miss some of it, but most of it was gathering dust, if I'm being real. Nah, not even slightly. It's an amazing card. Okay, I would hope it's amazing for $1,600. I don't regret it at all. My RTX 4090 has been killing it for nearly every game. Zero regret. Nah, it's great. I don't regret it at all. Gaming is my main hobby, and I've moved from consoles, so it feels like a good investment. So it's all these people that are justifying buying a $1,600 graphics card like it's okay. This feels like a giant cope. Like, no regrets on buying this, and this guy would buy a 5090 if that thing existed. But I feel like somebody here said it perfectly. No way out on this forum post. I honestly doubt anybody who's spent that much on a graphics card would honestly admit any regret, because it mean that if you spend that much money, then it's a mistake. Yes, a 4090 is the fastest graphics card in the world that consumers can buy, and it will perform best in games, but does it justify that cost still? Like, it's a $1,600 purchase. I mean, you could buy a car for this kind of money. To me, it's insane that people are saying that this is okay and justify it and cope to themselves that they're going to buy something like this. Because how I think the normal response to getting a 4090 would probably be like an impulse purchase. Like, you have enough income to get a 4090, but you would think that more people would end up regretting it over time. Like, this is what I think people would say, like in this Reddit post here. It says, yes, return the 4090. The marketing makes it seem like you're missing something when you don't have this or that. Because what does the 4090 really offer you? As long as you have a card that's fast enough to play games, what is playing at slightly higher FPS or slightly higher graphics really going to change about your gaming experience? It isn't going to reinvent gaming. When you have it, you realize it's nothing that you're missing out on. Once that itch is scratched, go back to just enjoying games. You can upgrade down the road when it comes absolutely necessary to do so. Really, like, if you get a 4090, and I can't even justify getting a 4090, even though I do graphics card testings for the channel and stuff, I can't justify getting this card because it's just so damn expensive. Just like how Graphically Challenged said here, and this guy spends a lot of money on his PCs, and he's been doing this kind of stuff longer than I have, but he even says this about the RTX 4090.
Either way, it was way more expensive, and I spent all this time and money on the 4090, and I could have just bought 7900 XTX for like $800. It would have done everything that I needed it to. But at the end of the day, I just had to share this with you guys because I feel like I don't want other people to make the same mistake as me.
It's just like you can easily fall into the trap of getting an RTX 4090, thinking you're missing out on something. It's like, seriously, this is all marketing. You are missing out on nothing with an RTX 4090. If you're being realistic, as long as you can play your games at an enjoyable level, you don't need an RTX 4090, especially spending $1,600 on one. So what this really brings up is, how has Nvidia gotten the community into this situation where it is like people trying to cope and justify buying an RTX 4090, which costs $1,600. That is so expensive. You could build almost 2 PCs for that money, and most people would be happy with those 2 PCs. That is insane. So how did we end up in this position specifically? Over the years, we all know that Nvidia has been no stranger to drop really high-end and expensive graphics cards. The Nvidia Titan cards have always been that kind of halo product, that flagship card that not that many people buy, but it is technically the fastest graphics card in the world, and even at the times, it's had the best features and stuff like this. So this is the Titan XP, was sold, this was 2017, was sold for $1,200 US. And that was a ridiculous amount of money, especially when this card was just a little bit more expensive, or a little bit faster than the GTX 1080 Ti. But the GTX 1080 Ti, yes, it had 1 GB less of VRAM, but this card was only $700. So it was literally almost half the price of that flagship card. But it really made you think back when this released, like, is any video card worth $1,200? And should we be charging this much for such a small amount more performance? So Nvidia is no stranger to doing this type of thing. It's like they will charge a ton more money just to get a little bit more performance. And the same thing happened with 30 series, so Ampere graphics cards, with the RTX 3090 Ti and the RTX 3090 in general. So the 3090 Ti, it MSRP'd at $2,000. Yes, this was during crypto shortages and stuff like that. And if you look at some benchmarks, so from Hardware Unboxed here, we can see that he did test the 3090 Ti and the 3090 Ti, not that far ahead of, say, an RTX 3080. So here's a 3080. And if you go all the way to 3090 Ti, it's not nearly an insane gap like you would think it would be. Yes, it is significantly faster, but if you also want to compare it to an RTX 3090, this is less than 8% difference, or around 8% difference just between the RTX 3090 and the 3080. But if you compare the prices of the RTX 3090 and 3080 was only $700, okay? And the 3090 launched at $1,500, okay? So literally double the price of the 3080. And if you're over here trying to justify the difference between this at 119 FPS at 1440p compared to 134 FPS for double the price, yes, it had more VRAM and stuff like that, but this does not justify that gap. The thing is, if we look at 40 series graphics cards, the 4090 is that flagship card with the costs a lot of money. But if you compare it to the 4080, and this is at 4K now because the 4090, I know I had it up here, but the 4090 is fast enough that it's getting CPU bottlenecked at 1440p. So yeah, we're looking at 4K results here. Between the 4080 and the 4090, we're seeing a large, that is not a point in the arrow. We're seeing a large gap in terms of performance, but not necessarily a large gap in terms of price. So over here, the RTX 4080 MSRP'd for $1,200. Now, obviously, prices have changed slightly. Now it's going for about $1,100, and the 4090 is actually a bigger gap. But the 4090 MSRP'd at $1,600. So this is like the first time in history that the 4090 was kind of justifying the gap between the 4080 and 4090, getting close to a 40% gap. I think around 35% difference here in terms of performance. Because the 4080 was positioned so poorly with its price and everything, it made people want to upgrade to the 4090, or just, it's like, oh, we're already spending $1,200 on a 4080. Might as well just buy the fastest graphics card at that point in time.
And if you don't care about value, then the 4090 is probably the better choice anyway.
Nvidia has actually changed their strategy. They're not doing the same thing like with the Titan XP, where it's just a little bit faster than the other card down, but they're charging a lot more trying to get the whales and stuff like that. Nvidia is still tapping into the whales of the market, but this time it genuinely is an upgrade. That's the difference that we're looking at and why everybody's buying 4090s. That's what's scary about the situation we're in, is with the 4090, this price has gone up so much and people are buying these graphics cards. Is Nvidia just going to keep their prices really high? Because you know the margins that Nvidia is making on these 4090s is pretty good. And that sheer sales alone justifies all of their other graphics cards, say like the 4070 Ti, not being as good or as competitive in the market. Although it's coming down to $730, which isn't terrible. Nvidia can offset their other cards that aren't as good because they're basically upselling everybody to get a 4090. And it just blows me away that we're in this position now, that people are coping that buying a 4090 is actually a good idea, then it drastically improved their gaming experience. That games aren't the same now without a 4090. Once you go up there and you buy that card, then you'll end up like somebody like this, where they're like, oh, I'll be getting a 5090 next year if that thing exists. These are the people that Nvidia wants. Flip side of this is like, why doesn't AMD do the same thing? Because we did see that the AMD 7900 XTX did launch at $1,000, and it performed very similar to the RTX 4080 here. In this case, you see that they're very close in terms of performance. The reason Nvidia is able to do this with the RTX 4090 is because they have genuinely the best product. They have DLSS. They have the best ray tracing. They have AI support. They're more power efficient, I guess if you want to say that. They also have just the brand recognition and trust that goes along with Nvidia. Most people are on Nvidia graphics cards. That's what makes this different and why Nvidia is in this position that they can do this and AMD can't do the same thing, which I do appreciate because that does mean that AMD has to be more competitive in terms of price. We've seen that the 7900 XTX dropped down to that's not a 7900 XTX. But we've seen that this card has dropped down to like $900, where people are buying graphics cards and they're coping and justifying that was a good idea when it's all just about gaming. Really, and I want to repeat this, I want to stress this is just gaming. It's a hobby. Like, very few people in the world can make gaming their job. But if you do play games and you make content or something like that, that does start to justify maybe getting a 4090, because 4090s with 24 gigabytes of VRAM and being on Nvidia with AV1 encoders and good AI support and really good support throughout tons of creative programs, that means that 4090s do excel in creative applications. That is one area where if you're using a 4090 for work, it justifies it. But a 4090 is not going to change your life. It's not going to make you love games again. Having better graphics in a game is not going to change the way you view a game. I know technically it changes how you view it because you're seeing it differently, but is it really going to change anything? I want to stress that. Really think about the value here, and also the repercussions of buying a 4090 means that you're also supporting Nvidia in doing this. And Nvidia is making tons of money off these cards, and it means that they don't have to prioritize the more affordable graphics cards, and they can release things like a 4060 Ti as pretty bad value, all things considered. Obviously, this is kind of opinionated. If you're happy with the 4090, I guess power to you. It's like for me though, it's like technically I would get good use out of a 4090 because I work on videos and stuff like that. But like this camera, I'm saying cameras are really expensive too. But this Sony FX30 camera was $1,600. This is the price of an RTX 4090, or what 4090s are supposed to be at. And this camera, to me, justifies the price so much more, because I'm going to be doing some stuff away from my computer now, and now I'm gonna have the camera that you guys are seeing me on right now, and this one to do run and gun stuff. And this is going to be absolutely awesome for different kind of content I'm going to work on. Whereas a 4090 doesn't enable me to do anything more. It's just I could render videos faster, and who really cares? But for me personally, 4090s just seem like a waste of time, waste of money. And I really hope that this trend doesn't continue that Nvidia is doing, because we're going to end up with graphics cards that cost $2,000. Just something to think on. Let me know if you guys did buy a 4090 in the comments. I've seen tons of people that are happy with 4090s and they justify to themselves it is worth it. And I'm telling you, you don't need these things. That is subjective, but I really don't know why you would need it. So I hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know what you think in the comments and what you think how this trend is going to affect us in the future. Hope for the best. Hope you guys have a good one. Hope you guys had a good one. I didn't say any English there. Hope you guys had a good one. I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.